Paris. The night from Saturday to Sunday, approximately 1963. The Les Halles Market, the very one that Miles Zola called the belly of Paris, operates from 2 o'clock until dawn. Porters unload carts of cabbage, fishmongers set out trays of ice, butchers in white aprons, already covered in red, begin butchering. It is cold, damp. It smells of earth, wet stone, and something sharp, almost sweet, onions. Hundreds of kilograms of onions, piled in mountains along the aisles. And somewhere deep within the market, in a small CAF with fogged-up windows, someone sets a earthenware bowl in front of you. Inside, a dark, almost brown liquid, covered with a baked crust of cheese, under which soggy bread hides. You take a spoon. The first sip burns. The second warms. The third, and you realize that you have never truly been hungry before. This is French onion soup. And you think you know its story. French classic, Paris, bistro, some king who invented it. Everything sweet and clear. But right here, stop. Because the story of French onion soup is not the story of French cuisine. It is a story of survival, class contempt, medical wars, the Industrial Revolution, and one of the strangest paradoxes in the history of food. A dish that for millennia was considered the food of the destitute became a symbol of haute gastronomy. How this happened, that is what occupies me. Let us start with the legend. Because the legend exists, and it is beautiful. They say onion soup was invented by Louis XV himself, King of France, hunter, lover of food. Supposedly, one day, finding himself on a hunt without provisions in his Trianon pavilion, he found only onions, butter, and champagne in the pantry, and cooked it. Historians will tell you that this is a legend. It has no documentary confirmations, but there is still truth in it. The truth is that French onion soup did indeed appear at the French court in the 17th to 18th centuries. And the truth is that it was precisely champagne or white wine, not water. This is an important moment to which we will return. But the real story begins much earlier. Onions are one of the oldest cultivated vegetables on the planet. They were grown in ancient Egypt at least 5,000 years before our era. The pyramid builders received onions as rations. This is not a metaphor. These are inscriptions on the walls of the pyramids themselves. Herodotus in the 5th century BC recorded that 1,600 talents of silver were spent on the construction of the pyramid of Cheops on garlic, onions, and radishes alone for the workers. Think about that. Onions are mentioned in the construction estimate of one of the 7 wonders of the world. Thus begins their history. In ancient Rome, everyone ate onions, but differently. The rich, in complex sauces with vinegar, honey, and spices. The poor, raw, with bread and olive oil. Martial in his epigrams mocks those who smell of onions. This is already a social marker. Already, a stigma. And right here begins what strikes me most of all. Over the course of almost 2,000 years, the European aristocracy despised onions precisely because the poor ate them. Not because they are tasteless. Because, too accessible. Medieval Europe was divided into those who ate meat and those who ate onions. This is almost literal. The feudal system of nutrition was strictly hierarchical. The higher your status, the further you are from the earth and from the vegetables that grow in it. The onion, a root vegetable, literally out of the dirt, was considered crude food for crude people. Medical treatises of the 12th to 14th centuries warned that onions inflame lust, clog the brain, and spoil the breath to such an extent that a decent person cannot be near someone who has eaten them. This was official medicine. Official, meaning written for the aristocracy. Onion soup in its crudest form, onions, water, salt, sometimes a piece of fat, existed in peasant Europe all this time. The French food historian Jean-Louis Flandrin estimated that between 1200 and 1600, onion soup in one form or another is mentioned in more than 200 documents. Wills, church records, inventories of monastery pantries. No refinement. No cheese. No wine. Onions and water. Sometimes, if lucky, a little bread. And right now, the main paradox of this story. Who saved onion soup from an eternal existence in the role of a peasant broth? The Parisian markets. More precisely, those very workers of the Les Halles market whom I mentioned at the beginning. The market operated at night. The people who worked there were freezing and starving. They needed hot, hearty, cheap food that could be prepared quickly from what was at hand. And at hand was onions. Mountains of onions. And right here something interesting happens. In the 18th century, small establishments, predecessors of modern bistros, began to appear around Les Halles, specializing precisely in late-night feeding of market workers. Bouillon, broth, was the name of both the place and the dish. The owners of these establishments began to experiment. They added butter, at first, so the onions would not burn. They noticed. If you sawed onions in butter for a long time, they darken and become sweet. This is not spoilage. This is caramelization, although no one knew such a word back then. They added wine, because wine was cheaper than water of good quality. That is no joke. They added bread, stale bread that had nowhere else to go. And they realized that if you cover the bowl with bread and grated cheese and put it in the oven, the bread does not get soggy, but bakes. A crust is formed. Under the crust, soup. This is no longer a broth. This is architecture. History has not preserved the name of one specific person. And that, frankly speaking, is fair because it was a collective invention. Dozens of nameless cooks in dozens of night eateries around the market over the course of roughly 50 years, from the 1720s to the 1770s, perfected the very same recipe. This was not one eureka moment. This was a collective evolution. Onion soup as an internet startup where no one remembers who wrote the first line of code. But then happened what happens to every dish that becomes good enough. The wrong people noticed it. By the 1780s, onion soup from night market eateries began to penetrate into more respectable establishments. Because it turned out, wealthy Parisians, returning home from late-night balls and theater premieres, also wanted something hot, and also discovered that onion soup is good, very good. Indecently good for something eaten by workers. This created an interesting situation. They began to gentrify the soup. Instead of cheap country wine, champagne, or dry sherry. Instead of coarse beef broth, tender veal broth. Instead of local hard cheese, Gruyère from Switzerland, which cost significantly more. Portions shrunk. Bowls became thinner. Establishments began calling themselves differently. And by 1800, onion soup is no longer the food of market porters. It is the first course in a fashionable Parisian restaurant. Here I must name one specific place, because it exists to this day. Au Pied de Cochon, at the Pig's Foot on Rue Coquelier in the first arrondissement of Paris, 2 steps from the place where the Les Halles market once stood. It opened in 1947 and from the first day specialized precisely in this night culture. The restaurant worked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and its main dish was onion soup. People came here after the theater, market workers came here, Picasso came here. This is documented. He had a favorite table. Hemingway mentioned onion soup in several letters from Paris in the 1920s. Jim Morrison, according to legend, spent several nights here shortly before his death in 1971. In one dish, all of 20th century Paris. But wait. We have not yet reached the dark part. Onions are one of the first products that became a subject of large-scale trade in medieval Europe. In the 14th to 15th centuries, Dutch merchants exported onions to Britain, France, and the Baltic states. This sounds innocent. But in the 16th century, European colonists in North America quickly discovered that onions grow superbly in the new climate, store for months, and are an ideal food for people who need to be fed cheaply and abundantly. Plantations. Ships with slaves. Onions as part of the slave's ration in the southern United States. This is a historical fact that is not usually mentioned in romantic stories about French soup. On the plantations of Louisiana and Carolina, workers received a weekly ration. A few pounds of cornmeal, a piece of salt pork, and onions. Onion soup in America appeared in the 18th century not only as a French influence. It appeared because onions were cheap, and because cheap food had nowhere else to go except into the pot of those who had no choice. This is part of the story. Without it, the picture is incomplete. Now about the prohibitions. In the history of onion soup, there is no single large, centralized ban, like the ban on coffee houses in England under Charles II or the ban on rum in the colonies. But there were local bans, and they show the same logic of power. In the early 17th century, several French cities, Rouen, Lyon, Bordeaux, introduced restrictions on the sale of hot food in markets at night. The official reason: disorders and debauchery. The real reason: city authorities feared late-night gatherings of workers. Because where there is hot food, there is conversation. Where there is conversation, there is discontent. Onion soup as a political threat: this is not a metaphor. This is literally what the burgomasters feared. The bans did not work. Naturally, it is impossible to ban hot food when people work at night and are hungry. Merchants simply relocated. The soup continued to be prepared. And every time the authorities tried to stop this movement of food from the poor to the slightly less poor, they lost. Because onions cost very little, everyone has a pot, and 2 hours are enough to prepare something that warms better than any coat. Let us return to the 19th century. Onion soup was already popular in Paris at all levels of the social ladder, from night laborers to the bourgeoisie of the 8th arrondissement. But it was precisely at this time that its true transformation into a symbol occurred. Auguste Escoffier, the chef usually called the father of modern French cuisine, the man who systematized French recipes in the Guide Culinaire of 1903, included onion soup in the canon. Not as a folk dish, as a classic one. This decision changed everything. Escoffier cooked for the Ritz-Carlton, for the London Savoy, for Kaiser Wilhelm II. And onion soup, soupe à l'oignon gratin, now stood in the same rank as boeuf bourguignon and steak tartare. The paradox was complete. A dish that for millennia was considered the food of those who could afford nothing better officially became haute cuisine. And this is not the end of the paradox, it is its new turn. Because rich people now paid large sums of money to eat what the poor ate out of necessity. And they called it sophistication. And now science. Because it is important for me to explain why onion soup works at the level of chemistry, and why the market workers of the 18th century, without knowing a single scientific word, created a virtually perfect dish. An onion consists of 90% water. The rest, sugars, fiber, enzymes, and sulfur. It is precisely the sulfur-containing compounds, propanethyl S oxide, that make us cry during slicing. They react with the water in the eyes and form a weak sulfuric acid. This irritates the conjunctiva. This is not poison. It is a defense mechanism of the plant. But when onions begin to fry, the sulfur does not disappear anywhere, it transforms. At temperatures above 150 degrees Celsius, the Maillard reaction begins. Amino acids and sugars interact, forming hundreds of new compounds, furans, pyrrole, thiophene. It is precisely these that give onions during sautéing that deep, almost meaty aroma. This is the same reaction that occurs when baking bread or frying meat. Onions, with proper processing, chemically mimic a meat flavor. Medieval monks who observed the fast and cooked onion soup instead of meat broth instinctively found the correct answer, although they knew no chemistry at all. Next, caramelization. This is a separate process that begins at 160 to 180 degrees. Sugars break down and form caramelin, carmelin, and carmeline, compounds with a bittersweet taste and a dark color. That is where this golden brown color of a properly prepared onion soup comes from. Caramelizing onions properly takes no less than 40 minutes over medium heat. Many recipes say 20 minutes. This is not true. 40 minutes minimum. Better, 1 hour. Patience here is not a virtue, but a chemical necessity. The broth adds sodium glutamate, natural, from beef bones. This is that very umami, the fifth taste, which the Japanese chemist Kikuchi Ikeda isolated and described in 1908. The wine adds acidity, which balances the sweetness, and tannins, which complicate the flavor. The bread in the soup absorbs the liquid and swells, creating a textural contrast. And the cheese, Gruyère, if made properly, when baked forms a crust thanks to the very same Maillard reaction plus the coagulation of proteins. Under the crust, steam. When you break the crust with a spoon, the steam escapes. And this very moment, physically, chemically, neurologically, is precisely what makes onion soup onion soup. The brain responds to hot, salty, glutamate-rich food with a powerful release of dopamine. This is evolution. Hot food means fire, fire means safety, salt, and umami mean nutritional value. Onion soup is not just a soup. It is a biologically calibrated signal. You are safe, you are fed, you survived. The market workers of Les Halles did not know neurobiology, but they knew that after a bowl of onion soup at 3 o'clock in the morning, one could work for another 4 hours. You cannot fool the body. Onion soup survived everything. It survived the French Revolution, which swept away the aristocracy but left the broth untouched. It survived the Napoleonic Wars, when onions remained one of the few products that could be bought even in a besieged city. It survived the First World War. Escoffier personally organized the feeding of French soldiers, and onion soup was on the menu of field kitchens. It survived the Second World War, when during the German occupation of Paris, onions remained one of the few products that did not fall under the rationing system immediately. And it survived globalization. Today, onion soup is prepared in Tokyo, Seoul, Bangalore, and São Paulo. Sometimes with miso instead of beef broth. Sometimes with Parmesan instead of Gruyère. The soup does not mind. It has no patent. There are things that become symbols by accident. And there are those, by natural law. Onion soup, by natural law. Because it is honest. It contains no ingredients that cannot be named. It contains no technique that cannot be mastered. It contains not a single element devised for the sake of effect. 40 minutes of caramelization is not a ritual for the sake of a ritual. It is the time required for the chemistry to work. The bread on the surface is not a decoration. It is a way to preserve heat and texture. The cheese crust is not a luxury. It is a lid that holds the steam. Every element of this dish arose out of necessity and remained because it works. This is pure, flawless functionality. And that is precisely why onion soup has not gone out of fashion for 3,000 years. Food that begins as an answer to the question what to feed a hungry person right now is the only food that has a chance of becoming eternal. Everything else is fashion. Onion soup is an archive. This was another dossier of the Culinary Archive. If you want the stories to continue, subscribe to the channel. Every week we open a new dossier. See you in the archive.